Let us pray. O Lord, grant us a daily awareness of the precious gift of life which you have given us. As members of this legislative assembly, we dedicate our lives anew to the service of our province and our country. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions. Reading and receiving petitions.
Overbar.
I would ask, under Standing Order 83, that the petition presented yesterday with respect to Bill 204 be now read.
We, the undersigned, would like to go on record as being opposed to Bill 204, the Dangerous Dogs Amendment Act, in its presented form. We do not feel that particular breeds or crossbreeds should be specified in the Act, but that a dangerous dog should be determined by behavior. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Member for Drayton Valley.
Request leave to introduce a bill being the Health Statutes Amendment Act 1992. This amends the Hospitals Act and the Alberta Healthcare Insurance Act to expand the third-party liability program from recovery of hospital inpatient and outpatient operating costs to include certain additional costs incurred directly or indirectly by the Minister of Health on behalf of an injured person, and to create an independent Crown right to recover the Crown's claim.
The honourable member for Drayton Valley has moved first reading of Bill 22, Health Statutes Amendment Act 1992. Those in favour of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 22, Health Statutes Amendment Act 1992, introduced by the honourable member, Mr. Thurber, is now read a first time.
Deputy Government House Leader.
Move that Bill 22, the Health Statutes Amendment Act, be moved to government bills and orders.
Heard the motion. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Tabling returns and reports.
Minister of Labour, followed by the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to file the annual report for the Alberta Advisory Council on Women's Issues for the year ended March 31, 1991. And once again, they have printed it on the back of a painting which is by an Alberta artist whose name is Sonia Billard. And I hope everyone will take advantage of displaying this in an appropriate spot. Thank you.
Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to table 2 copies of news packages in accordance with National Consumer Week. The first is by the Consumers Association of Canada, declaring a plain language sticker program to encourage understandable contracts. And the second is by the Alberta Real Estate Association, announcing Canada's first plain language listing agreement on housing sales.
Seems plain enough. Minister of Advanced Education.
Speaker, I'm pleased to file the 1990-91 annual report for the Alberta Council on admissions and transfers.
Additional.
Introduction of special guests.
Minister of Advanced Education, followed by the member for Banff Cochrane.
Speaker, Fairview College is one of our success stories in its 40th anniversary this year. We have today, Mr. Speaker, in the public gallery, the volunteer chairman of the board, Mr. Donald, and the president of Fairview College, experienced its 40th anniversary, Mr. Fred Trotter. I'd ask, Mr. Speaker, that they rise in the members' gallery and receive the warm welcome of the members.
Banff Cochrane, followed by Edmonton Avonmore.
Mr. Speaker, for the 3rd year in a row, it gives me great pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to the members of the Assembly students from Chinook Wind's Adventist Academy, which is located on the east side of beautiful Banff Cochrane constituency. This year's contingent consists of teacher Mr. Lauren Agree, and 9 grade 10 students. They're located in the public gallery. I would ask that they rise now and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Avamore, followed by Edmonton Jasper Place.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure today to introduce to you and through you to members of this Assembly 31 students from J.H. Picard School, which is located in the constituency of Edmonton Avonmore. They are accompanied by their teacher, Ms. Chartrand, and Mrs. Robinson. I would ask that they arise now and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Jasper Place.
Speaker, we have today in the gallery some special guests all the way from India, Mr. K.T. Adikula and his wife Mariama Adikula. They're accompanied by Mr. Skaraya Zachariah, who's past president of the Malayali Society, and his wife Mariama Zachariah is with him as well. I wonder if they would rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Strathcona, followed by St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, it's my pleasure to introduce on behalf of the member from Edmonton Highlands, a group of students from the Sacred Heart School. There are 25 in number, and they are in the public gallery. They are accompanied by their teacher, Mrs. Jane Burkhart. It's my pleasure to introduce them to you and to the Assembly, and would they rise now and receive the warm welcome of the House.
St. Paul and then Dunvegan.
To you and members of this Assembly, students from the F.G. Miller High School in Elk Point. They are accompanied by teacher Miss Angela Friesen and parent Mrs. Holly Mishinyuk. They are seated in the members' gallery. I would now like them to rise and receive the warm welcome of this Assembly.
Dunvegan and then Edmonton Mill Woods.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's always a pleasure when I have student constituency Dunvegan. And today we have from the Fairview College 12 transitional vocational students taking that program at the Fairview College, and they are accompanied by teacher group leader Mr. Ken Fryer and Miss Sue Fox. They are seated in the members gallery. I ask them to rise and receive the warm welcome of the Assembly.
Edmonton Mill Woods.
Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce to you and the members of the Assembly this afternoon a dynamic group of young students from the Pollard Meadows School in Edmonton Mill Woods constituency. They're accompanied today by their teacher, Mr. Don Geek, and parent, Mrs. Lorna Clark. I'd ask them to please rise now and receive our very warm welcome.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
On behalf of the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Vegreville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm sure that as elected representatives of the people of the province of Alberta, we're all concerned about access to them, about being available to them, hearing their concerns, and communicating effectively with them about what we're doing here in this Legislative Assembly. An important part of that access, Mr. Speaker, is provided by the media, the women and men who work here covering the proceedings of the legislature, who not only need access to MLAs, but they need to know that their concerns can be addressed when they feel that access has been impeded. Now, currently, Mr. Speaker, there's no real opportunity for that to occur, an opportunity for issues of concern to be resolved between the media and MLAs, and I'd like to ask the acting Premier what his government intends to do about that.
Well, Mr. Speaker, of course, this is one occasion where the socialist opposition and the government are of one accord. We agree that the extension of communication and information to the public should be an important priority of all governments, and government responsibility is clear on this side. What we have said, Mr. Speaker, is that through precedent, and I guess through understanding, and to some extent through our own local examples here in Alberta, we have established certain guidelines, and I would be prepared to submit rules which allow us to deal with such things as the press, access to the press, and where in fact the press have exclusive access to this building. But it is clearly understood that the Speaker, I think, Mr. Speaker, without putting words in your mouth, sir, has control of the Legislative Assembly, and to some extent it is shared with the Minister of Public Works Supply and Service. What I might suggest at this point, Mr. Speaker, is if in fact this is a general question, it may well be reasonable to have it clarified either by a member of this Legislative Assembly or by a joint communication from yourself and perhaps all those others who are affected. It may well be time to have that clarified, and I think reasonable people, as I'm sure members of this Assembly are, together with the press, can find reasonable solutions.
Well, I appreciate that, Mr. Speaker. And to illustrate the potential for disagreement, apparently today a Liberal member of the Public Accounts Committee moved and then apparently voted against a motion that would restrict to some degree access of the media to the Public Accounts Committee. Decision made by MLAs, no opportunity for appeal or redress for the media. And I'd like to ask the acting Premier if the government is prepared to put some process in place to deal with concerns exactly like that one.
Well, again, Mr. Speaker, I've already indicated that most committees of the Assembly set their own guidelines and have their own rules by which they operate. I think if this is one item that needs to be considered and discussed, it may well be swept into this general list of items which may need some clarification. I think the government side would be willing to consider it, but not make a commitment at this point until it's well considered and understood, and that a broad discussion emerges between all those affected parties.
I'm pleased that the acting Premier recognizes that there are legitimate concerns and a need to provide some avenue of redress. And I'd like to ask him if he would consider appointing a joint committee comprised of members of all parties of the Legislative Assembly with members representing the Parliamentary Press Gallery to address issues of this sort.
Well, I think I've already indicated that may well be one of the processes which emerges. Whether or not we formalize it, as the member has suggested, I would listen to the arguments, and the government would clearly consider those. But I'm sure the process here already is established, whereby members of all parties have an opportunity to move motions forward, to have a wide range of discussions on these questions. And I don't think we're inhibited by process as much as we're inhibited by our objective to achieve a reasonable conclusion of this problem.
Main question, Vegreville.
The question of the member for Edmonton Belmont.
Mr. Speaker, my question today is for the Solicitor General. Mr. Speaker, the Solicitor General has told the Legislative Assembly that he is very much concerned about public and staff safety at the Edmonton Remand Centre. On Monday, the guards at the Remand Centre locked down the inmates because the staff complement at the centre was not sufficient to look after the 580 inmates that on that day were housed at the centre. The guards are very much concerned that with an actual staff reduction from 1979 figures of 200 full-time positions to 193 today, that they are not going to be able to adequately supervise the inmates, many of whom require maximum security. Mr. Speaker, to the Solicitor General, there's an additional concern that the population of the Remand Centre is about to increase given that a number of new beds have been ordered. Will the Minister confirm that the Edmonton Remand Centre's population is about to increase substantially?
Mr. Speaker, that's a very long introduction to that question, but let me do some corrections before we go any further. There was no lockdown in the Edmonton Remand Centre the other day, so I just wanted to clarify that. The component in 1979 of full-time equivalents that worked there were 277, not 200, as you just said. There are 268 working there today, not 193, as you just alluded to. The new bed components are asked for through Public Works Supplies and Services, and when those estimates come up, you can certainly discuss it, to look at ongoing demands that will be at the Edmonton Remand Centre. The other day, you had said that the Edmonton Remand Centre was designed to hold a population of 200 inmates. On opening day, on the fall of 1979, the capacity was 376, not 200, and it was quickly increased at that time to 428 in 1980-81 in the annual report. As we go forward with this, I do not mind the questions because I am concerned at the demand that is put on these centers because of the increasing charges that are going on out there in the criminal justice system. But I sincerely wish and I ask that in front of the media and giving it to the people of Alberta, that you would get the facts straight so that the general public out there doesn't have to guess what's going on in this fine province.
Mr. Speaker, if we're going to debate the purchase of beds and public accounts, I'm wondering what 96 beds are doing in the basement of the Edmonton Remand Centre. And Mr. Speaker, I sincerely wish that the Solicitor General would get his act together, because he doesn't know what's going on in his department.
That's
on
right.
Monday morning at 11 a.m.
Order. The member already asked a question in the first sentence of this section of what's supposed to be a succinct supplementary. And now to get on to the next part, you might want to throw that as a question as your final supplementary, but as far as I'm concerned, you've already asked a question.
Speaker Bill wants to come forward.
Thank you, honorable members. Sit down. Order, please. Would the Solicitor General like to respond to the question that was in that, please?
Well, I want to say that we are concerned with the levels that are being introduced into the remand center every day by the charges that are going on in this province. But let me just say, the Edmonton Remand Center is not a luxury hotel. People go in there because they are charged under our justice system, and the average length of stay in our remand center is 1 day. There are people that spend 1 to 2 days waiting for a permanent bed, but they get them. And we do have a few in there that spend a long period of time there because of their offense. But let me repeat this. This is not a luxury hotel. It is full. The average length of stay before they go to court and then go to one of our other institutions or are released is 1 day. Some spend 1 to 2 days before they get a permanent bed.
Final.
We should change the name to the Edmonton Weston. Mr. Speaker, on Monday morning at 11 a.m., the Assistant Deputy Minister, Mr. Hank O'Hanley, the Director of Correctional Services, advised representatives of the Alberta Union of Provincial Employees that an additional 96 beds were to be added to the following units: 4C and D, 4A and B, double bunking all inmates. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised that the Minister is unaware what has gone on in this facility, given the severity of the matter. And I would ask the Minister, the Solicitor General, if he would commit, he personally would commit to sit down and meeting with the representatives of the Alberta Provincial Union of Provincial Employees to find out what's going on in his department, but more appropriately, to find out what's going on at the Edmonton Remand Center and make sure that the appropriate level of staff is in place to protect the safety of the staff, the safety of the inmates, and the safety of the general public.
Mr. Speaker, I will say I absolutely do know what's going on at the Edmonton Remand Center, and if I have to go back through and repeat what this honourable member does not know that's going on there, I will. But let's just correct one more statement that you've made in this House today. You said that there were 96 or 98 beds that were asked to be installed. The department's request for installation of 48 double bunks and toilets in the 4th floor living units of the Edmonton Remand Center is going to be brought forward as a request to Public Works Supplies and Services, not 96.
Edmonton Glengarry.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, Alberta students cannot get access to post-secondary institutions in our province. Last year there were 26,000 applications that were rejected because there simply was not enough space. The year before that, the same problem existed. I'd like to know from the Minister responsible when he's going to solve this most serious problem.
Mr. Speaker, it's well known, I believe, that Alberta has the highest participation rate in the nation when it comes to the post-secondary system. That's a mark, I think, of not only the quality of our education, but the very great interest by Albertans. The leader of the Liberal Party has raised previously the figure of 25,000. I purposely Mr. Speaker, asked the University of Calgary and the University of Lethbridge to do a follow-up study about qualified students who did not gain access. Having received their reports after, I think, a 4 to 5 month study, Mr. Speaker, indications are to me, and the advice I've received, is fully 98% of our 50,000 students who want to access university education had that opportunity in the past year.
Mr. Speaker, I don't know who the minister is talking to, but the University of Calgary statistics say that of the 1,195 applications that were rejected, 50% never went on to any kind of post-secondary institution because they couldn't get in. Based on these facts, will the minister find monies to correct this problem of access?
Mr. Speaker, it's not my wish to argue with the honourable leader. However, the information, again, I have from the University of Calgary is that 750 qualified students did not have access to the institution. And at the University of Lethbridge, the other organization carrying out the study, the figure was 250 to 260. In total, Mr. Speaker, that equals about 1,000 students, which is 2% of the 50,000 students who wish to access university education.
Mr. Speaker, of the students that attempted to access the U of C states that 35% of the rejected applicants went back to high schools to do upgrading, and most of those stayed for only 1 semester. I'd like to ask the minister responsible, as the double count system penalizes school boards under these circumstances, will the minister get rid of that ridiculous policy of his?
Mr. Speaker, here he is. He waves his wallet to all Albertans and talks about fiscal responsibility, and then he has the audacity to suggest in this assembly, thinking that people aren't watching television, that we're going to fund phantom students. The taxpayers ought to fund an education for students who aren't there. What kind of fiscal responsibility is that, Mr. Speaker?
Redwater, Andrew. Redwater.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, since rural Alberta and agriculture are a priority of this government, and this government has participated and initiated a lot of rural and agricultural program, and one in particular is the gross revenue insurance program. Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Associate Minister of Agriculture. Since the GRIP program has been in for pretty near a year, can the minister indicate the response and sign up to the GRIP program for 1992?
It's not budget. Mr. Speaker, the deadline or the cancellation deadline for this program, the Gross Revenue Insurance Program, actually falls on April the 30th, which is tomorrow. However, I would indicate to all members that based on the contracts that we do have in and the elections for contracts that we do have from participants or farmers in Alberta, we would expect an increase in numbers in the Gross Revenue Insurance Program this year.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the minister, in view of the changes in other provinces, is the minister looking at similar changes in this province?
Well, Mr. Speaker, certainly there have been some significant changes made in other provinces, and it is causing, I understand, some consternation among the producers there. As I had indicated earlier, there are no significant changes in the Gross Revenue Insurance Program in Alberta this year. However, we have made some changes administratively to ease the administration of this program and to make it certainly more accessible to our producers. I should also say, Mr. Speaker, that we have a national GRIP committee that works ongoing throughout the year, looking at the program as a whole and looking at any opportunities for improvements to it. I should also indicate, Mr. Speaker, that...
The Honourable Minister, take your place, please. The Chair has been somewhat inundated by notes, and I have forgotten that estimates this afternoon do indeed deal with the Department of Education. I should have called it out of agriculture, thank you. Thank you for educating me that it's agriculture. That's what I was attempting to say, and really the line of questions is out of order on the rule of anticipation. I apologize to the House. Thank you. Edmonton Kingsway. Edmonton Kingsway.
Mr. Speaker, my questions were for the Minister of Economic Development and Trade. Mr. Speaker, the New Democrats have obtained a copy of a confidential strategy paper from the Minister's department, and I'd like to file 3 copies of that, indicating that the department plans to largely replace the present ad hoc system of support for Alberta companies with a major new initiative called the Risk Sharing Fund. Even the minister's department officials, Mr. Speaker, now see the folly of the cabinet ministers trying to pick economic winners and losers. To the treasurer who picks up the losses on behalf of the taxpayers, given the fact that the government's current ad hoc approach has resulted in a $1.6 billion taxpayers' losses and 6 failures for every success, what steps will the treasurer promise to take to ensure that this proposed risk-sharing fund does not simply repeat past government mistakes?
First of all, Mr. Speaker, let me make it very clear that the Minister of Economic Development and the government clearly refutes and denies the numbers used by the member and by the member from Norwood over the course of the past 2 days with respect to the losses. And I think the Minister of Economic Development is on record and has clarified clearly that the numbers used in the Socialist opposition position paper is in fact wrong and should not be accepted. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, because of the dynamic nature of the way in which this government responds to establish and expand the diversification of our economy here in Alberta. And Albertans realize that through the number of jobs that have been generated over the course of the last 6 years, in fact, that diversification strategy is working. That we always continue to update and review the ways in which we can address some of the needs expressed to us to ensure that the Alberta industry remains as competitive as any in the global world and, in fact, in North America. And by way of note, our budget, for example, outlined a fairly precise way in which we want to ensure that competitiveness will exist, including some marginal and adjustments to such things as manufacturing, processing, taxation. To talk only to this paper is in fact a recommendation, not a position.
Mr. Speaker, I challenge the Treasurer to show one mistake in the background paper we put out. On page 6 of the confidential strategy document, the paper says, and I quote, "Ad hoc financial support may continue to be necessary to attract outside investment to Alberta in the case of particularly desirable projects." To the Minister, will he admit that the reason this glaring loophole is in the strategy paper is so that this government can continue to announce high-profile projects like MagCan and ALPAC at election time?
I don't want to bore the Legislative Assembly by referring to Beauchesne, but I think it is instructive in this case. And Beauchesne is very specific. I haven't got the section in front of me right now, but I could get it in a second. But in a general way, it says the following, Mr. Speaker, that working papers which are recommended to a minister for policy considerations are not, in fact, the subject of the Legislative Assembly because they have to be handled in the most candid way so that policies can be accepted or rejected in the free flow of ideas. Obviously, papers of this order must be just that, ideas, opportunities for input to the minister. But to say that this is the policy position of the government is not wrong, is in fact wrong. What we can say, Mr. Speaker, is the following, that in fact, over the course of the last 5 years, the province of Alberta has in fact diversified the economy to an amazing extent. Just look at the work of my colleague, the Minister of Lands and Forests, with respect to the expansion in the case of forestry industry. Right now, forestry exports have increased by over 200% in this province as a result of private sector activity here. Now, the socialist opposition continues to say we're not generating enough jobs. When we respond in a very positive way, all you get is the negative doom and gloom across the way. Other forms of diversification are working in this province, Mr. Speaker, just as surely as our economy is among the strongest in Canada as well. And we intend to ensure and to maintain that priority for Alberta.
Calgary Northwest. Order.
Speaker. My question today is to the provincial treasurer. Smoky River Coal is a company that is experiencing substantial difficulty right now because of depressed coal prices, and yet has accessed $13.7 million of loan guarantees from the provincial treasurer. My question to the treasurer is, what assurances can he give Albertans that you're not going to lose this $13.7 million like all the other millions you've lost?
Way to go. Well, first of all, Mr. Speaker, the member 99% wrong in his position. So let me make it very clear that his numbers are not at all agreed to. What we do say, though, is that we have assisted Smoky River Coal. As you may expect, this is a matter of detail, and I would not have the full information before me as to how we have participated, except to say that it is one of the clear economic strategies of this government to ensure that one of our natural resources, in this case coal, which is suffering fairly severe competition from other hydrocarbon sources, including oil, natural gas, and heavy oil, has to have an even opportunity to be marketed into many of the markets for coal. And to that end, the Minister of Economic Development and the Minister of Energy, in particular, have attempted to work with Ontario to make some natural sense of our economic union here in Canada, to ensure that our Alberta coal accesses the Ontario market for their demand, Mr. Speaker, as opposed and to back out American coal. It simply makes economic sense. It's an initiative taken on by our premiers. It's an initiative followed through by the ministers, and I'm sure that Smoky River Coal, in terms of exploiting this resource, in terms of expanding job opportunities and market share for our natural resource market, is in fact an important objective and part of the diversification strategy of this province.
Hear, hear. In other words, no assurances, and the figures that I quoted are the minister's own figures, so if they're wrong, he's the one to blame. Mr. Speaker, Smoky River Coal has said they may need another $60 million in capital financing to open up further mines. Is the minister telling us today that he's prepared to put forward that other $60 million they're going to be coming for?
I mean, this member, Mr. Speaker, is absolutely making a mockery of question period. He knows that these kinds of questions, which anticipate answers, which put hypothetical questions, are, as he is, just out of whack.
Here, here. Bow Valley. Bow Valley. Bow Valley.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Advanced Education. Mr. Speaker, my constituents have, I've been receiving phone calls from them about the reduction in student financing. And in vote 3, I noticed of the estimates, there is a reduction of minus 5.6%. Now, the minister is saying that education is a top priority in this province, so would he explain why the reduction?
Mr. Speaker, one of the constraints, I believe, that Minister of the Crown must operate under is either the Financial Administration Act or the way certain people think budget books should be laid out. It's true, vote 3 in the estimates passed last week or discussed last week indicate a 5.6% decrease. However, Mr. Speaker, it should be very clear that there is this year, in this year's budget, $8.8 million more available in loans to students in Alberta than there was for the last year. I think that is very important. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, we put in place a program of auditing, i.e. checking the student applications as to the need for student loans because they're a need-based program. And as a result of that audit process, Mr. Speaker, we're able to reduce the obligation by the taxpayers this year of some $4 million. So on balance, Mr. Speaker, there's been an increase of almost $9 million in availability of student loans, plus, I think, a more effective system of checking the veracity of the student loan program.
Well, I find this a little bit confusing because a reduction and then an increase. But will this money be available to the Students' Finance Board this year?
Mr. Speaker, the increase in the student loan are the new rates, and those loans really were increased primarily because in listening to the institutions implementing our new tuition fee policy, there's been a modest increase in tuition fees, and as a result, student loans have been increased by $250 to enable the students to access those loans. And that program, Mr. Speaker, would be effective, in my view, as of tomorrow morning.
Stony Plain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my questions today are to the Minister of Labour again. With regard to the Spruce Land Millworks fire, the Minister stated on Monday that the Fire Commissioner's primary concern was repair of the inoperative fire hydrants. Mr. Speaker, had the Fire Commissioner allowed the county to enforce the order, the offending party could have been fined $100 for every day they did not comply with the order, a rather significant incentive to fix the hydrants. Further, the Commissioner is obligated under Section 17 of the Fire Prevention Act to either direct the county to immediately fix the hydrants or have them repaired and then follow up by charging for the cost of the repairs. Can the Minister tell the Assembly why the Commissioner abrogated his responsibility by knowingly permitting the hydrants to remain inoperative?
Mr. Speaker, the county had that similar authority, as I understand it, under one of the statutes that gives them power to deal with safety issues as well, and similarly to pass the cost on to the person who is causing the risk. The Fire Commissioner at no time prevented that action from happening. Once again, a fine, which goes, the money goes actually into the general revenue fund of the province. It does not go to refurbishing and fixing the hydrants. However, I'm pleased to say, as we did say the other day, the hydrants have now been fixed.
Mr. Speaker, the Fire Commissioner did in fact prevent the action from happening, and the first county order was issued on May 30th of 1990. Then for 9 months they tried to get action done. Then the Fire Commissioner refused the County of Parkland's request to enforce the order on January 31st, 1991. The hydrants were finally repaired only after the March 12, 1992 fire. Will the Minister tell the Assembly why it took 413 days for the Fire Commissioner to recognize the hydrants were not being fixed and only had them repaired after the Minister's direction to do so?
Mr. Speaker, once again, let me say the primary objective in this case was to fix the hydrants, and there was a delay. Nobody is saying there was not a delay. And I'm pleased to say that the county and the Fire Commissioner finally got together, and they both saw to it that those hydrants were fixed.
West Yellowhead, followed by Edmonton Whitemud.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every day hundreds of people have to drive more than 40 kilometers on the worst road in the province of Alberta to work in the coal mines near Catamount. For many years...
Shame.
Tell me you're doing your
Shame
job,
on you.
For many years, they've been asking this government to put their safety ahead of the payouts to their friends. When will I'd like to ask the Minister of Transport, when will the upgrading and paving of Highway 40 south of Hinton to Catamount be completed?
Mr. Speaker, anticipating the question but not anticipating the fact that that was the worst road in the province, I thought I had it.
It's in your constituency.
And it would be from Rainbow Lake to Zama City. And I'd be happy as the devil to take you on that. Mr. Speaker, in relation to Highway 40, both north and south, there's been some realignment work being done on Highway 40 south, and there's also some work done. At this particular point in time, 30 kilometers of that particular road are done. I correct that. There's roughly 13.5 kilometers, and there is still some to do this year, and I'm not sure just exactly when we'll get the tenders ready for it, dealing with the area south, because there's also the question of what I do with the road north. Through your constituent.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's unacceptable that since 1999 this government should be ignoring this road that has needed the work. It's not simply a resource road, 1989. It's not simply a resource road, it is a primary highway. And it supports significant economic development, including tourism, as well as increasing local use for the people of Catamount, Hinton, and school children. Will the Minister admit that the only reason this work was promised during the last election and has only started now is to buy votes in the upcoming election? It didn't work.
I didn't get the last comment, Mr. Speaker. Would you repeat it?
Didn't work last time.
It didn't work last time. Oh, okay.
We're going to try.
Well, two things come into it. I am prepared to admit that there's something like 15 highways, primary highways in the province that are still gravel, some of them for as long as 25 years. So there is a great deal of effort that goes into making sure that the balance of the province, as it relates to primary highways, as it relates to the priorities of the counties and others on the secondary highways, and of course in some cases working with them as to a cost sharing for a resource that may be tourism related, coal related, or wherever the case may be. We have had some difficulties and we have had some efforts put into trying to find a realignment, and I think the honourable member knows that, Mr. Speaker. And as I said just a moment ago, there is some work by the looks of it that will be planned. It may be a late call in 1992.
Edmonton Whiteman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Consumer concern and consumer protection must be more than one designated week of awareness. Consumers can get burned any day of the year when it comes to major purchases such as motor vehicles and motor homes. To the minister responsible for consumer affairs, is the minister prepared to enact lemon legislation to provide for consumer recourse and protection on major purchases?
Mr. Speaker, I share with the honourable member the belief that Consumer Week itself is only a point which we draw to the public's attention and to our own attention, the needs that are there in our marketplace today. With respect to the specific question, I do believe that we need to upgrade the general assessment of our automobile marketplace and the way in which some of the transactions take place in that area. It was for that reason that we established the Automotive Working Committee some time ago, which reported with a number of suggestions. Unfortunately, those suggestions were not clear enough for all Albertans to accept, and we have agreed to go back to the drawing board and to look at what Albertans from all walks of life and all perspectives would want in a set of self-regulating and other rules governing the automotive marketplace.
Mr. Speaker, to the minister, I'm speaking specifically about lemon legislation for protection on major purchases. Is the minister prepared to commit to this House that he will undertake a review of this matter to determine the need for such legislation and as to when such a report may be filed?
Mr. Speaker, I assume when the member speaks of major purchases, he's still speaking of the automotive industry, and in that respect, we have a lot of the base of that information from the study and the public hearings that have been held over the past year and a half. It would be my hope that if this Assembly adjourns this summer, I would then have an opportunity to talk in more depth with those groups who were not pleased with the initial recommendations of the committee and to look at what change acceptable to a broad cross-section of Albertans in the not-too-distant future.
The chair is interested in the comment, if the House adjourns this summer. Grand Prairie.
Mr. Speaker, all of the comments relative to important highways in this province notwithstanding it, I am compelled to again make reference to an important commercial highway link in my constituency called Highway 40. This is not new to the Minister of Transportation. I'm directing the question to him again to see if he has put any new pressure on his department or other planning to get Highway 40 hard surfaced.
Mr. Speaker, I can appreciate the honourable member's concern whether it's Highway 40 South or Highway 40 North. Highway 40 North is paved to Grand Cache, and it's from Grand Cache to the area just south of Grand Prairie that still has to be done. One of the issues, I would believe, Mr. Speaker, is the time frame under which we can do that, and dollars certainly have a major part to play in that. In light of the fact, Mr. Speaker, that this year is the 50th anniversary of the Alaska Highway, we entered into an agreement with the federal government to do dust control on that section from Grand Cache to Grand Prairie, and there was 31 kilometers done last year. and there will be the rest, about 125 kilometers done this year to assist with dust control. That's not pavement, but that is dust control, and it is dollars.
Mr. Speaker, I again push for a time frame or a timeline on how we can get that highway hard surfaced.
Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that the member from Grand Prairie has been in my office many, many times, and he is getting the same pressure because I get the copies of the letters that he does. I think it's fair for me to say that this year there will be 2 paving projects involved in that section where the heavy traffic is, and that's the log haul from about Gold Creek North, and I'll use that. There is one that has been issued to Lead Corps for 15.4 kilometers from the junction of the Canfor Road to the Grovedale Road, and 13.9 kilometers from the Grovedale Road to the junction of 666, and that went to Wapiti Sand and Gravel. So there's roughly $3 million in this year's budget for some work being done on that section that is very heavily trafficked with log trucks primarily.
Beverly, followed by Calgary McKnight.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs in his House on March 31st said that he was nearing the conclusion or the consultation process relative to the Residence Tenancy Act. However, the Alberta Real Estate Association says differently in their recent letter, and I quote, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs has accepted our request to delay proclamation of the Landlords and Tenants Act, thus allowing our input. End of quote. Now, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister, why is the Minister continuing to delay proclamation of this essential protection for tenants when all the parties have had, in fact, ample opportunity to put input since the Minister established the McLaughlin Commission some 3 years ago?
Mr. Speaker, the member is correct on both counts. We did indicate that we're nearing the end of the consultation process, and that's in fact true. But it is our first and foremost commitment to make sure that all ideas and all concepts are considered. I was asked by the Edmonton Real Estate Board in particular to wait for 2 weeks for input into some aspect of the regulation that they had further thoughts on, and I agreed to that, as I was asked by 3 tenants in Calgary for a similar delay over a 3-week period. Nonetheless, I have now received that information, and we're proceeding through the drafting, and then we will proceed through the process of government that's required to enact the regulations as quickly as that is possible, recognizing that our first goal is to make sure we have regulations which meet the needs of Albertans and which are the best we can possibly get.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what troubles me is the association have said that the outstanding items that they're apparently lobbying the minister on is the increase in rents and inspection reports. And we know what the real estate agents want. It'll be quite different what the tenants need. Mr. Speaker, the tenants and the advocates are eagerly awaiting the proclamation of this act, and I hope that it is done very soon. However, the minister asserts that the regulations will provide a fair balance between the rights of landlords and tenants when he delayed the proclamation specifically for the request of the landlords. The second question, if the minister has made no such agreement with the association, will he agree to provide 2 vital pieces of information to this assembly? First, table this assembly a list of the people and groups that he has consulted with.
Thank you, honourable member. Thank you. A little less preamble, a little more question. Thank you, Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, for what you picked up from that. No, thank you, honourable member. Well, fine. Thank you, Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not exactly sure what point the honourable member make in his supplementary question. What he read from the preamble did not take into account the previous answer, that I have in fact delayed the proclamation on several occasions for landlords and for tenants because we are committed to getting the best information possible from the widest number of Albertans and making sure that there is precision in this particular act. I have to say that in terms of the Edmonton Real Estate Board, the Alberta Real Estate Association, they've provided some helpful technical points with regards to the regulations. As with all Albertans, I expect not all of what they want will be in those regulations, but I believe that they will be fair to both the landlords and the tenants in this province.
Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a significant factor in the student aid is inflation, something the minister did not mention earlier in response to a very good question from the member from Bow Valley. Mr. Speaker, when inflation is factored in, the budget for financial assistance to students has been cut by 36%. 36% or $51 million since 1986 when this government came to power. My question to the minister is this: how can the minister in this government claim that students are a priority when his own budget shows otherwise?
Well, already answered. Mr. Speaker, I thought I had dealt with that in this year's estimate.
You said it too fast, though.
The availability of student loans to Alberta students has increased from $228 million to $237 million, an increase of almost $9 million, Mr. Speaker. This minister is as aware or more aware than most of the increased cost of living for students and others. And that's why this government and this minister has made strong representation to the Canada Student Loan people, namely Mr. D. Cotre, the Minister of State for Canada, to increase their portion to keep up with Alberta in terms of providing student assistance.
Mr. Speaker, during budget debates, the minister finally admitted that student aid available has not kept up with the cost of living. Will the minister index student aid to inflation to stop this rapid drop in student assistance?
Mr. Speaker, in this year's budget, the taxpayers of Alberta who pay the interest on all the student loans are paying some $16 million on behalf of those students. And furthermore, Mr. Speaker, in terms of loan defaults in this year's budget is about $9 million. This is in addition to the approximately $30 million we provide by way of grant to disadvantaged students. Mr. Speaker, I'm as mindful as anyone that costs continue to go up. I'm also extremely mindful, Mr. Speaker, that the commitment of the government of Alberta to the post-secondary system is as strong, if not stronger, than any province in Canada, including student assistance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Agriculture. It's not on budget. On April the 13th, this Assembly passed a private member motion recommending the Alberta government urge the federal government to adopt the buyout of the Crow benefit along the Alberta Freedom to Choose proposal. I understand there'll be a meeting. I understand the minister is having a meeting with his counterparts, the federal and provincial ministers from across the country in Leduc on May the 3rd and 4th. My question to the minister is this: will the possibility of the change of the method of payment of the Crow benefit be a topic on the agenda of this meeting? And if so, will the minister urge the federal government to adopt the buyout?
Mr. Speaker, the results of the resolution as debated and passed in this House have been circulated to the federal minister and all the provincial ministers. The item will certainly be discussed at Leduc this weekend, and we will certainly be making representation for a buyout.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My supplementary refers to the transportation talks, a series of 138 meetings held across Canada to discuss transportation issues. Will the findings of these talks be discussed at the upcoming meetings?
Mr. Speaker, one of the items on the agenda this weekend will be the final report from the third-party facilitator that conducted the transportation talks across the prairies. We in Alberta will certainly be pushing to set up a decision-making process to occur between the May 3rd, 4th meeting and the July meeting in Halifax, at which time we would hope some final decisions would be made with respect to the Western Grain Transportation Act.
Might we revert briefly to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Vegreville.
Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to introduce members of the Assembly 39 visitors from Mundare School in the Vegreville constituency. They're seated in the public gallery and accompanied by their teachers, Mrs. Vicky Morjuk and Mrs. Rita Paquette, along with Mrs. Marie Lissick, Mr. Jason Blondin, and Mrs. Dolores Barava. And I'd like them to stand in the public gallery and be welcomed by members of the Assembly.
Orders of the day.
Committee of Supply.